Hey, man.
Hey, what's up?
Welcome back.
Welcome back. It has been a minute.
It has. I felt like we got into a little bit of a routine and roll last year, and then of course the holidays come around, so took a little break.
Yeah.
Did what Gen Xers and most of the world do, a little bit of holiday time.
A little bit of life happening.
A little bit of life happening. So that's good, chaotic, just all wrapped up into one. So,
yep. If we haven't talked about this is typically how we do things. Chris and I don't live that close to each other, so it takes him, the better part of an hour to get here. So, which is not crazy long, but
I'm a bit of a casual driver too.
Yeah, and just with everything, all the life that people have going on, taking an hour to drive here, an hour to drive home, and however long it takes to do this. We typically do a couple of episodes at a time.
True.
So the last time that we actually shot video together was
about a month and a half ago.
December the 4th.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So almost 2
coming
months.
up on 2 months.
Very true. Very true. Look at that.
Now,
kicked right back into saying very true already.
Yeah. So
change that this year.
Anyway, I did the kind of a little filler video. We had a Christmas video, that kind of thing. But the last story that we told was supposed to be Pizza and Mopeds. Now, the pizza story took long enough. We decided to leave Mopeds for another time, and we're going to pick back up right where we left off.
I think it's a great way to start the year, too. The pizza story did go on much further than what I thought that it would.
I thought it would be really quick because I thought, sure, we can do Pizza and Mopeds in one, and just talking through the whole thing and as you remember.
Oh, it goes 800 different ways. So
yeah.
I'm interested to see where the moped story is going to lead
I
to.
am too. I found a picture of I don't know if it's identical, but it is very similar, if not identical.
You've done really well with photos so far.
As I've
watched some of these and listened, some of the photos you've used of, in particular with Christmas gifts and I think some vehicles.
What about your cars?
Had. Yes.
Yeah.
You're spot on with those.
Dude, the car was, that wasn't a picture of your car, of either of those?
No, but it was really close.
But it was exactly.
It was.
The color on the Escort, the color on the Colt.
Amazing stuff, man. It's
so the internet.
Fun times.
Can be a great thing. It can also ruin your life, but it can be a great thing. So, without taking up any more of your time, let's jump into mopeds. So, let's hit the intro.
Mopeds. Hey, man.
Hey, we're back.
We are. Mopeds.
Mopeds. That's the name of today's episode. And in that first little intro, I had forgotten to put out our mainstay props, the Book of Answers, and our white powdered donuts, which is a story yet to be told.
White powdered donuts.
These are the ones that I brought. And as you can see, there is not much white left on them. It is... I'm thinking that at some point it may turn to soup.
That is very possible. I like how we're bringing a little bit of fun stories. We're bringing a little bit of education. Science project going on here. We've got literature with our Book of Answers here.
But now the ones that you brought that are actually sealed, they best if used by December 30. Can't see a year.
Probably 2030.
I think that's 2024. The 4 is faintly printed. I'm surprised I can read this.
So those certainly have expired.
So they have expired.
Yeah, there they
by a little over a month. But if you were so inclined, which I am not.
No, if you need some type of a cleanse, probably a really great tool there. So
Yep. And
anyway,
make sure you stay over over
those are-
your mic.
whew. I just hope they never start to smell, especially the greenish, blackish brown ones.
If they start to smell, then they'll just have to go.
There we go. That's a good plan. So we're going to talk about mopeds today.
Mopeds.
Played a big part in my life.
Yes, you had mopeds for quite a bit of your life, and you would take them camping when you would go camping. You had
We
the
did.
little Honda Spree.
I had a moped license,
Oh,
which
yeah.
was essentially a smaller version of a motorcycle license. It's
Right.
just there was a limit on the size engine.
Yeah,
that you
CC
could
limit.
drive. Yeah. So I did have that. My first license of any sort was a moped license. I had to go to the DMV, loaded up my moped in the back of a truck, drove it to the DMV, did the test drive in a very populated and busy road with the inspector or the instructor, kind of standing in a parking lot and watching me do this.
So somebody watched you. They didn't ride
Correct.
along. Okay.
Yeah, they didn't follow me or anything like that. It was really interesting and terrifying at the same time.
I don't know that I ever knew that part of it.
No,
the test.
Okay, made me street legal, and
Did you have to tag it?
Yes, they did have tags.
Okay.
I don't think the one we're going to talk about today, which was my first one,
No, that one didn't have tags.
did not have a tag because you could pedal start it, and I think that was
Right.
the difference. I then upgraded later on to brand new Honda Spree.
Yes.
My parents had Honda Elites.
Elites that were
and,
80 cc's, and yours was 50.
Yes, and so a little bit slower. So nice black, had purple Spree written on the side of it.
I remember it well.
It matched.
I will do my best to find
the,
pictures of those.
you should.
So
and here's the kicker.
if I find them, they'll be up here where they usually are.
Absolutely.
So.
What was really cool is mine. It was a different color, but it was the same model that my grandmother rode.
Yep.
Because she had one as well. Yeah.
Nanny.
I felt she would ride hers with a black leather jacket around campgrounds.
You know, people might think that would come as a surprise.
Okay. No.
But if you
it
know
really
Nanny,
wasn't.
that does not come as a
That
surprise.
was right up her lane. So it was a pretty cool experience growing up.
Does Nanny
having
watch
that.
these?
Nanny has not yet watched these. Maybe.
Has your mom watched these?
I'm not really sure if she has.
Debbie.
She knows that these are happening.
Debbie. Come on.
But
Most of the stuff you probably know, and even if you didn't, it's
Now,
been
I mean,
35 years ago.
I do have to cite her. I have asked her questions about memories and do you recall this, dog's name, things like
Right,
that.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you go back and watch, you'll kind of understand that. But I've certainly Q&A'd her on a few things to get some experiences maybe a little more correct than what I recall them. But yeah, today's story is about a moped and what it kind of led to, the particular incident I think we're going to talk about.
Yes.
But maybe I tell a little bit of story about how I came to have this moped.
Yes. So now, he's going to give the story about how he got it and that kind of thing, and we'll jump into why that moped played such a significant role in a core memory we have. But back in the 80s, you had, and probably even before that, there were pedal start mopeds.
Mm.
It looked like a bike, and the engine was not exposed.
No.
You could not see the engine, so it just kind of looked like a very low-framed bike. I will put a picture of what Chris's light blue moped looked right here because I did find one.
It's beautiful.
So if that's not the exact model, it is eerily similar.
Very close. I've seen some of the photos, and yes, very, very close.
So pedal start moped, if you don't, it's a very different, they don't have, the closest thing I think nowadays would be something like an e-bike.
Correct.
That you can still pedal.
And this early
a
version of
precursor.
it, this was gas powered.
Yes, precursor to the e-bike.
But I think the maybe the philosophy behind it was if you ran out of gas,
You could pedal.
you could pedal.
Now there was resistance in pedaling.
There was resistance, and it was not light either.
No.
So,
it was
we're not talking about something built out of, some titanium lightweight metal.
Oh, no.
I mean, this was practically like probably a 200-pound steel.
Oh, it was it had some significance to it.
It did. Because at the end of today's story, the moped still ran and was functionable.
I don't know
through all this. Actually, you know what?
Nothing happened to the moped.
It's true.
It was just
I
us.
didn't wreck.
No.
So it was just people. But
Stay tuned if you want to hear what that's all about.
So before we get to that, like Dave was saying, is 70s, 80s, 90s. I think dirt bikes were a thing. I think that had we been somewhere not in a neighborhood, I definitely would have wanted to go more dirt bike. There were dirt bikes in the neighborhood.
Yeah, a little Honda, like CBR, I think was.
Yeah, like just nice little. They just ripped up the street pretty good. They were a little loud, so I think my parents wanted to go with maybe something a little quieter. But I came into possession of this via my dad. We were camping one weekend, and he went for a walk, and.
Now that you said that, I remember. I was going, I don't remember how you got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently, he came across someone in the campground that had this moped, had brought it with them, very much like what we ended up doing. And next thing I know, he's just walking it down the street back to our campsite. And it's like,
that dude could bargain for anything.
This is now yours. And it's
right.
like, okay.
He probably said something like, hey, if I tell you a joke and you laugh, you got to give me that moped.
Something like that. He was big on like $100 bills. So he could have,
I'll give you $100 for that.
Yeah, I'll give you $100 for that. I mean, that was the kind of barterer he was. A lot of people who know us or know me know that my parents were flea marketers for a while.
Yes.
He would go to auctions and
about a socket set from your dad.
We would go to the flea market and sell on Saturday. So I've stood behind the booth many times out in Lebanon behind that, oddities that we were selling of whatever got picked up at the auction. But anyway, so yeah, he was a barterer. He was always looking for a deal. Somehow, I don't know the full story, obviously, of how it came to be, but that's my memory. He went off for a walk. He came back
with a moped.
And so that's what I rode around the neighborhood. Took it camping, and
we all took turns riding it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a bike. It's like, hey,
right.
Let's share this.
Ooh, somebody got a new bike. Let me ride it. Does it ride different than mine?
Really, really good. And we had a street that was pretty well shaped to kind of just run up and down.
Yeah, it was not a through street.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't. We didn't have people. Very rarely did we have people just wander down the street. They were not cutting through there to get somewhere. You pretty much came to the street if you lived there or were visiting somebody, or your typical repairman or mailman, stuff
correct.
Like pizza delivery
coupon deliverer. But yeah, and so the street, you could go from one end to the other. Do a little circle at the end of it and kind of go back. And I would do that. There was at least a dirt bike or two that would sometimes do that as well with some of our neighbors and things like that. But of our age group, this was kind of like the new toy. I guess it was probably that first year that I had it that this core memory kind of comes in.
Yes.
So the another probably either a summer day or a Saturday. It was a day we were obviously not in school, and
no, but we were in school because I had to go to school with.
And school plays a part in this,
yes.
especially with me and the story that eventually gets around at school and what I
right.
had done,
right,
or what someone had done. Actually, no one knew it was me until I told them.
Until you fessed up,
until I'm hearing the story told to me about this fantastic thing, not fantastic good, but this crazy thing that had happened. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was there, and that's not what happened.
I remember you telling me that. Hey, this is what I heard happened.
Yeah.
So I had to,
it was insane.
had to correct it.
So So we're out doing what we do. Skateboards are big at the time.
Yes, I had a skateboard.
Yep.
It was not a fancy skateboard. It was I think the whole thing was, I mean, not cheap. I think it was $40 or something like that. It was a Nash brand skateboard.
I wouldn't call anyone in our core group a skater.
No.
I think everyone kind of
No.
messed around with it a little bit, but there were a couple of skateboards that people had, but nothing I would say was.
And there were
really
no
like
skate
hardline.
parks like there are now. There are plenty of skate parks in lots of places and things like that. It was kind of the newer thing were the wider skateboards, because up until then it had been the very narrow, skinny 70s, early 80s
Those
skateboards.
plastic type things. And then
Plastic. And so then they became wider. People started doing more, tricks on them and things like that.
Thank you, Tony Hawk.
Yeah, it had the skid plate on there and the rails and
I remember one in the neighborhood, someone had maybe called like a Bigfoot skateboard or something. It was really wide, almost
maybe, yeah.
and covered with like non-skid on the top.
I remember the
think
guy
it was-
who's involved in this story had a nice skateboard.
Okay.
It had the checkerboard top on it. It was yellow
Yeah.
with the checkerboard. I think, best I can remember, I think it was a Veriflex was
Okay.
the name of the skateboard.
So
I'm sure I'll correct
Another-
myself
yeah.
if I need to.
or somebody will.
Or somebody
So-
will be like, "Oh, that ain't it."
Skateboards were trendy. Moped was a little trendy. So eventually the idea comes up of like, how do we combine these two things?
Right. How can we make these skateboards faster and even more dangerous?
And we've talked about the circle in our
Yes.
neighborhood, but we also had the hill.
Yes, there was a hill.
And we've not talked about that yet, but the hill, I think, was on our side of the street.
It was.
I know there was technically a second hill, but
Yes.
I think the hill on our side of the street definitely
It was steeper.
was steeper, and
And we would
You
go
got more
down there.
momentum.
That would be where we would go sledding
yes,
when it snowed. And I remember I ruined a pair of house shoes because I went out there in my pajamas when it snowed, and
Alright.
my brother and I just would take off running and then slide in our house shoes down the hill, and I basically, I guess, burned holes in the bottom of my house shoes, and my parents were less than thrilled that I had done that.
that's fantastic. But the good thing about the hill is there was enough room where it leveled out at the bottom that you did not run into the actual main road
Right.
that our street ran into,
right.
which was
Yeah, there was no
was good.
way because the hill was not that steep, and there was plenty of flat
yes.
for you to stop whatever
I think you
were
stopped
doing.
at least 3 or 4 houses,
At
and that's on a
least.
really really good run
Yeah.
down that road. So
If
yeah,
you- yeah,
so you got the hill, you got a moped, and you got
2 skateboards.
2 skateboards.
Now nobody wore helmets or elbow pads or any of that kind
No,
of stuff.
not at
They
all.
might have existed, but it was kind of one of those things where if you left the reflectors on your bike, you were a sissy. If you wore any of that protective gear and you were not a competition skate, if you weren't Tony Hawk or the like, there was no need for any of that stuff. So I didn't
would
even
agree with
own any safety equipment.
It was seen as less than. So you
Yes.
definitely removed those things. You're
Now you're
right,
looked at less than
reflectors.
if you don't have those on.
I do get strange looks. I have a hard time wearing a bike helmet, but I still like to ride my bike.
Yeah.
And,
I ride a one wheel
I do get
with a helmet.
looks at times with that. Didn't if I dirt bike, mountain biking, I will wear a helmet. But if I'm on the greenway,
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I've got the skill set to stay upright.
Right.
Now,
You should.
now, obviously, accidents happen.
As a parent, I would say you can control yourself, but you can't control other people.
That's-
Someone
that's
else
good
may
ad-
crash into you.
That's good advice.
So
Um,
there's that.
So at some point, maybe I'll change that. But for now, I do not own a bike helmet. Proudly.
When I go one wheeling, I wear my ski helmet. Because it used to be if you go snow skiing, you just didn't wear a helmet. And then people started wearing them, and now if you don't wear it, people give you the awfulest look. So I have a ski
You
helmet.
out here trying to hurt yourself?
Right. I don't go skiing that often. I can't tell you the last time I did go skiing. I probably could, but
Yeah. The thing, and
I'm
all that
supposed
makes
to go.
sense.
I'm supposed to go in March.
Safety is good. And I don't want to get too far off. So there's no safety equipment involved in
No.
this story. Absolutely no pads, no helmet. I'm not really sure with the first moped, that I even purchased a helmet. Later mopeds, yes, because they were on the street. But I think, again, the pedals with this one made it, unlicensed and unsanctioned on the safety precautions. So,
Right.
So our idea was, and it wasn't the first time that the skateboards had gone down the hill.
No.
You guys had done that. We had all done that at some point.
Plenty of times.
And there had been some wipeouts.
Yeah.
But
Little wobbles.
our thought was, instead of, just starting at the top of the hill and letting momentum take the skateboard, why not hang on to the moped
And add some speed.
and get a really good start at the top of the hill?
Because you had a little luggage rack on the
Yes.
back of that.
Great for one-handed.
One hand holding. Now, I rode and ride regular footed, which means the left foot in front.
Mhm.
Our friend Maddie rode goofy footed, which is right foot in front. So it worked out well for me to be on the left side of the back of the moped. I think I found a picture of a guy actually holding on to a moped with a skateboard that I'll
Is
put
that going to
right-
be put up here too?
Yeah, I'll put it up here.
There we go. That'll give somebody some flashbacks.
Right. So I held on to the left side of the luggage rack. Maddie held on to the right side of the luggage rack.
And we're at the top of the hill.
The
Ready to
idea,
go.
yeah, the idea was get a little bit of speed from the moped, and then let go and ride it out to see if we could ride out longer, just to get a little more speed.
And we weren't trying to get to the main road,
No,
but we wanted to get closer
closer.
to the main road.
It's kind of like, hey, when you tell your kids, don't go past this line, they will go up to the line and
toe
everything
on it.
within their power to be as close to it as they can without going over it most of the time. So it was kind of one of those things. We wanted to live a little bit more dangerously, but not dangerously.
Right. And I'm sure, not that we talked out strategy, but my thought looking back would have been, you pick up speed, you get down to where it levels out, and you just kind of S back and forth to, kind of slow your momentum before you get to the end of the street. Ideally, you get right before the stop sign, and you just do a little kick out of it, grab your board.
And look
Victory.
cool. Look cool. Like, I made it to the end.
And that would have been our core memory at this point. Probably
Yes.
not as talked about as
Oh,
this
definitely
now.
not. Because
That's not what happened.
we would have done that had it not been for this incident. We would have done that over and over, and it would have just been something that we did.
Yes. And enjoyable. Maybe
Yes.
come up every once in a while, but not this core memory.
Right.
So, all right. So we take off.
Yes. Now, but the plan was we get going, and maybe a little bit before halfway down, us skateboarders let go, and then Chris just gives a little gas and rides off. That's what we're supposed to do.
What do you think that moped probably did? What, 25? Maybe.
Probably tops.
It
25.
may have had 30 on the speedometer.
Yeah, I think it may have been a 30-mile-per-hour speedometer. But you weren't going to get it there unless you were going downhill, which may have worked in this time.
I think, yeah. I mean, we were probably at 20, 25
Yeah.
miles an hour.
I would say.
When this went a little sideways.
All right, so we start.
We start going down the hill. Everything's good. I feel like there's laughter. It's like, let's go.
Yeah. Woo!
And then we get to the point where you guys should let go.
Yes. So I let go.
I'm looking straight ahead, so you
Right,
tell me
so
what happened. I know the result, but
I can tell you what happened because I saw it firsthand. Because again, I'm facing Maddie and Maddie is facing me. So
smiling.
yeah, because
joyous.
this is great.
This is
The wind in our hair. I
Speed.
had hair. So I let go, and I see Maddie push off. So Maddie pushes off rather than just letting go. And the problem came when he pushed off. That was some backwards momentum, which caused him to lose his balance a little bit.
Mhm.
And I'll never forget the look on his face. It was a look of intense concentration, trying to correct what he had started, but also a look of, this is not going to end well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I couldn't tell you all the little intricacies of what happened because it happened so incredibly fast. But what happened, he lost his balance, and the nose of his board went under my board in between the two trucks. Mm-hmm. Okay. So his board instantly stopped, and my board instantly stopped. Now, having played baseball for most of my childhood, I played soccer too a little bit, but instinct, I was going 20 or 25 miles an hour with nothing under my feet, but still had a small gap in between myself and the road.
Yep.
So I just turned it into basically a head-first slide. So at 20 or 25 miles an hour, I do what we would have called then a Pete Rose.
Mm-hmm. I think we did call it that.
I did call it a Pete Rose. I did a Pete Rose on our street on the asphalt until I came to a stop. Now, of course, road rash, all that kind of stuff, just chewed up my, hurt very badly. I look back, and Maddie is just laying on the road. Mm-hmm. Now, the way that he is laying, his face was kind of on the road, which gave the impression of a smirk.
Right. And by this time, I've heard and seen what's happened behind me.
Because I'm sure there was around. Just yelling and whatever.
Yeah, well, the skateboards hitting, and then hearing a little bit of the. I mean, there's some chaos. Hit the ground. There was a little bit of it was.
Oh yeah.
It made a sound that was like that. That didn't sound right.
That didn't sound like it was supposed to.
A glance back, and I had mirrors.
Yes.
So I could, all of a sudden, you guys are there, and then all of a sudden you're not. So it's kind of like this little turnaround, and I see the chaos that's unfolded. And so I do a quick, break, turn around, and come up. And about the time that you see, we said his name, Maddie, on the ground, and that smirk, I see it too.
Maddie was a habitual jokester,
and a couple of other people have come in at that point.
Because there were onlookers at the top.
I would say we had spectators.
Right.
Let's see how this is going to turn.
Right. I'm sure my brother was up there, and maybe some of the.
I remember
other
your
kids.
brother. I remember.
Was Kenny up there?
I don't remember Kenny. I remember Matt
Mullins.
At the
maybe
very
Joe.
least. Yeah. So I do remember people kind of coming, and several of us kind of notice. Okay. He's got a little smirk on his face.
Right. And so we start just saying funny stuff, that just little phrases or whatever that we...
Oh, yeah. Because you're like, dude, look at this.
Right. My hands are torn up. My elbows are shredded. Look like I just took a cheese grater to my elbows. My knees are all skinned up. It was road rash pretty good.
Yeah. And I do recall someone then trying to get Maddie to laugh.
Yeah, we're all
trying. He's already got a smirk.
So we're all trying to say something. We're saying these phrases that we would say to try to make him laugh, and where he would get up.
The one that always stood out to me was Schaefer.
Yeah,
someone's
Schaefer beer,
and it's like
I don't know why that was funny.
I don't either, but it makes me giggle a little bit.
Right,
and we were expecting the same thing out of him, and we didn't get that.
No, he just sat there, and then the infamous Sherry from our fight video.
Who's now moved to a different house on the street.
She has moved from up by your house to down in the flat part just past the hill.
Who's got another perfect view of this.
Perfect view. Now, again, I don't remember Jeffrey being out there, but he may have been. I don't know. But again, I guess you just like to keep an eye on the kids in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I can't really fault her for wanting everybody to be safe.
No, we're giving her great reasons to have done that too.
Yes.
If you listen to these stories.
Right. Yes. She comes running out.
She does.
And she runs up to Maddie, and then she just starts panicking. She was like, his eyes are rolled back in his head. I will forever remember her saying that phrase. His eyes are rolled back in his head. Now, what had actually happened, we had to call the ambulance.
Yes, and at that point, it was somebody needs to call 911.
Yeah, we didn't have phones. Nobody had cell phones.
No, so I'm on the moped. I take off.
Yep.
So this is kind of what happened, from my version.
Yeah,
is
because I stayed there at the scene.
Right.
You left.
I take off. I'm like, I'll go call 911. And so moped, I zip around. I head straight to my house. I get to my driveway, and I lay the moped down in the driveway. Like, it's still
I don't
moving.
know that you ever told me that.
I was just sitting here thinking, I was like, I don't know if I've
I
ever told this
never
portion
knew
of it.
that you just dropped it.
I dropped it, and it kind of, just kind of skids in the driveway a little bit. So maybe that's why I was thinking that the moped was still drivable after, because that was where they got damaged.
See, I never knew that.
I was so panicky, and immediately I'm thinking, oh my God, I killed my friend. And I'm already in that mindset, right?
Right.
And I just, run into the house. I'm like, Mom. She's like, what? And I go, we were playing the moped, playing with skateboards. We were on the hill, and Maddie's in the street. We got to call 911. Call an ambulance. Call an ambulance. And she's like,
sorry if that was loud, but
I'm like, she's like, what? And I go through the whole thing again. I'm like breathing heavy, and I'm panicking. I'm like, Maddie, and the mopeds and the skateboards, and he fell. And so she calls 911. She's, where are they at? I'm like, he's in the middle of the street. Just tell him to come to the street. They'll see him. And so I think around about the time that she comes down there with me.
I do remember her coming back.
Yeah,
yes.
I feel like she comes down. I come down. I remember the paramedics and the fire trucks, everybody, kind of coming.
And then they ended up bringing him up to his house, because I remember the fire or the ambulance being in front of his house, paramedics, whatever. So
I don't remember. I don't know what went on inside. That was kind of like,
right.
At that point, I'm sure my mom's panicking, going, "What role did you have in this?" And
right, am I going to get sued?
Where is this going to lead from a legal perspective? I'm probably having the same thing of like, because at that point I don't have a license or anything, so I'm panicking of like, oh my gosh, if I've hurt him or killed him. And at this point we don't know, did he regain consciousness or anything? At least I
think
know.
He regained consciousness right before Matty knocked himself out. He hit his head on the asphalt and knocked himself unconscious.
Yes.
Now he had the scrapes, and I remember very distinctly had one right here. Because, again, he rode goofy, and so that is what hit right here. So he had a very big road rash thing right across. Yeah. I see him from time to time.
And it was small. And it wasn't that accident that I haven't seen him in a very long time. But he was always fun and crazy. If you didn't know him before that, you've only known him after, that's not my fault. That's not this accident's fault. That's just him.
Right.
So, but yeah, no. So, I do know he eventually got transported to the hospital.
Yes, they took him to the hospital just to check him out. They took him to the ER. Yep,
and he stayed. He was there for at least a couple of days because I went and visited him.
Yes.
Did we do that together?
Did he break his arm?
I'm not really sure what injuries he sustained.
He may have broken his arm. I don't know. I see him at a local restaurant a few times a year. Okay. So next time I see him.
Did we go and visit him together?
Yes.
Okay.
We did.
I felt like maybe my mom gave us a ride. I felt like she was there.
Yeah.
And gave us a ride to what was Donaldson Hospital at the time to visit him. So he made a full recovery.
There were no sustained injuries.
No long-term sustained injuries or anything like that. But he was out of school for a couple days, and that's what kind of led to the other half of like what I experienced was the next day I'm at school, and there's this whole buzz going around school about what happened to Maddie. It's like, did you hear he was involved in a horrible motorcycle accident? And
I remember this.
He's on death's bed. He's in the hospital, and we don't know if he's going to make it and all this stuff. And it's like, and I'm like, are we talking about the same person?
Yeah, Matty had a very big personality, and kind of lots of people knew him. Yeah. And so his absence, and I'm sure just, being who he was, that some phone calls were made, and people, Matty's in the hospital.
Yes. And again, no cell phones, anything like that. So you get probably one person who got some details. shared it, and then from there it's like the telephone game.
Yeah,
right?
where
it's
you
like you
tell
whisper
them
it, and
right.
it's like it gets changed around. So
Right.
by the next day, he's in the ICU. It was a horrible crash and this and that.
Motorcycle accident.
Yeah, and I do remember being at lunch, and this girl, I think her name was Courtney, was in tears, like over the news of like, oh my gosh, classmate just going through this, and at that point, I think there was at least a day or so. That's why I feel like maybe it was a weekend, because I feel like I had already been to the hospital to see him,
Yeah.
and so I knew he wasn't in ICU. He was
Not on death's bed.
no, not at all. He was hanging out. We'd had a couple laughs when we visited, and my parents weren't getting sued.
Right.
we kind of knew all that stuff. So she's tearing up, and I remember breaking the news to her of like, no, he's fine. And she's, how do you know? And I'm like, well, because I was driving the moped
It's your fault.
that he was hanging on to when he fell. And she's like, what? And like, so I kind of go through the story and let her know. And
Got her straightened out.
Yeah. And it was like, so then by the end of the day, you're hearing bits and pieces of like, no, but it was, then it got changed to, I had done something, my driving skills or something like that.
Came into question.
Kind of, did I run him? I think at one point I heard that I ran him over, that he was skating next to me, and I took a wrong turn, and I just, caused him to fall. And it was so crazy how many different versions of it came out.
So misinformation is not a new thing.
No, not at
And rumors spreading because somebody said something. Now it's, somebody posts something and all these.
It goes awry.
Right. But back then it was just.
Yeah. It eventually, I think, got all straightened out. I mean, he came back to school, obviously, and life went on. But definitely, I mean, you had some gnarly road rash.
Oh, I remember I had very big gauze pad. I still have the
paramedics
scars
checked
on
you
my elbow.
out too, right?
Yeah, they did check me out, and they cleaned it, which is not fun. By the way, if you've never had a road rash open wound cleaned by 1980s paramedics, it's not. I would not recommend.
No, they're probably still using
But
some of
I
that
had these huge
alcohol.
gauze pads, and they gave me this almost like fishnet type stuff to put over it so that it would keep it covered and safe, but yet kind of breathe. And they didn't want to wrap tape around it. So I had that on both elbows, and I think I had something on my hands as well. I do remember there was a day or two where I really couldn't write anything because I couldn't. My hands worked to grip a pencil, but actually holding the pencil was too painful, and I just opted out.
I remember you were a tender walker there for a little bit too.
I was,
between the knees, trying to heal up, and the hands and everything.
And I actually had a couple of little things on my hip, hip bones too, because we were skinny back then.
It's a good full-on home base slide.
Oh,
and definitely a Pete Rose slide. Look it up.
Yeah.
Look up a Pete Rose slide into home plate, and you'll probably get exactly what this dude experienced.
Yeah, I would imagine if you find any clips, there's a very popular. There's one an image that I have that plays in my mind when I think of Pete Rose slide. It's him running and then becoming basically airborne. He didn't just do a head first slide.
Photo.
It's airborne, and then boom, slide. And so that's essentially what I did because I was in the air when the skateboard was removed from under my feet.
I had an in-law, I won't mention his name, that did something like that on a slip and slide and broke a rib. Well, I'm going to protect the innocent and not say it, but when you describe that, like, that's what I think of, and I'm like, yeah, that's still kind of funny, but it's not.
I don't even want to get it. Who had a slip and slide? Not to tangent off on that, but since you said slip and slide, I remember somebody having one, and they used to have the metal like stakes to hold them in.
one of them bad boys come up.
and I sliced my leg sliding down the slip and slide.
I don't really have any like kid memories of a slip and slide.
So maybe I was at somebody else's house at a birthday party, or
I've got a couple of
or a
adult
teen
stories
party.
about slip and slides.
Yeah.
And honestly, none of those turn out well.
No.
Yeah,
Adults should maybe stay away from slip and slides.
I 100% agree. But yeah, no, I've built a couple of slip and slides, and that can get a little tricky when you're building your slip and slide out of stuff you're getting at Home Depot. You're setting up.
I've gotten one of those big rolls of urethane plastic.
Oh, yeah. They make great slip and slides. You just need to have about a mile and a half runway that doesn't lead to a portion of your yard that's still red clay and gravel.
That's fair.
That's all I'm going to say about that experience.
That's fair.
But I'm pretty sure that's a core
Yeah.
memory for my children.
Yeah. Maybe they'll do this.
But yeah, but I mean that's so to finish up the moped story. Everybody made it. We're good. I was not banned from mopeds. I eventually got an upgrade. And one thing we did not do is we didn't try that trick.
No, we did not hold on to, and I think that's the difference in a lot of Gen Xers and people now, is people now would do something and hurt themselves and be like, I can do that a little different way and not get hurt. Gen Xers, we're hard-headed and stubborn as all get out. But at some point, if you get hurt bad enough, you go,
That's a lesson.
ought not do that again.
Yeah. Well, and I think we had more opportunity for that to happen because of the lack of safety gear.
Right.
If you're wearing a helmet, you fall, hit your head, okay.
And you're okay.
Maybe I need to approach that activity a little differently so that
Yeah.
doesn't happen again. But if you are doing that and you don't have protective gear and it hurts, you're like, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's a key
Yeah, that's a
difference in
don't
in the
recommend.
generations. Yes. It's like, let's just do
That's
this without
a 0
too much
out of
help.
5 stars.
That is true. But yeah, definitely a core memory. A little bit of trauma, a little bit of I think us trying to be a little adventurous, but definitely a lesson nonetheless.
Yeah.
So, what are you thinking?
I think that's a good.
I think that
that's
is.
a
I'm trying
good
to think
wrap.
of a question for the Book of Answers.
I
as
was
we-
just thinking. I was like,
Okay.
wonder what a good question for the Book of Answers would be.
And we started this by saying, no one on our street was really ever what I would call a skater. So one question I thought of was maybe, did that incident deter our little group from being
More into skating.
skaters?
I think that is a fair question.
Is that a good question?
I think that's a good
All right.
question.
So
I think
that's-
we've gone to the back for a lot, so
We're gonna go
I'm
to
going
the
to go a little bit closer to the front.
All right. And once again, if you're a new listener, the Book of Answers is a book of answers. There's no questions. So we ask the questions. It gives us an answer.
And sometimes it doesn't make sense, the answer, because I
You
guess
gotta
it would
be prepared
depend.
for that.
It would depend on the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the question
Gen
is,
X trait too. If it doesn't make sense, so
make it that or make it make
or
sense.
we'll find something that makes
Right.
it make sense. It's true.
So the question is, did that crash and trauma
Mhm.
that ensued deter us from investing more into skating or becoming more of the skater community, which was becoming more prevalent
It
at
was
that
really-
time?
I thought quite popular at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
time.
All right. The Book of Answers says, provided you say thank you.
I'm gonna struggle to make that make sense.
Yeah, I can't make that one make sense.
Provided you say thank you.
Provided you say thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's see if we can come up with something.
This one gonna be better.
It's going to be great, is what it says.
It's gonna, and it was. We didn't have to be skaters.
Right. It was great not being. Nothing against. I had friends that were, hardcore
No.
skaters, but.
And we both like adjacent sports. I'd like to surf. You like to snow ski. There's some skaters do those couple things too.
Yeah. Yeah, which is
snow
why I
ski.
bought a one wheel. Supposedly, one wheels are
You're just ground surfing at that point.
that is. It was people that the company One Wheel
Mm-hmm.
that their creators. Their idea was they like to snowboard and they wanted a way to snowboard in the summer.
Makes perfect
So
sense.
kind of reverse, but essentially you are asphalt surfing.
Makes a lot of sense. Looks
And-
enjoyable. I've not tried it. I have some interest.
I think that you would
But,
really like it, and I think that if you end up purchasing that major purchase that you're considering,
They have to go. They have to
I think
look
you
at
have
that
to
as well.
get one because all of us have one, and that's what we do when we go to do that.
I do say I practice. I have a those balance boards. Some of the
With the little
surf
half ball in the
community,
middle.
yeah, surf community calls them like an endo board, but it's basically that roll, a wood roll up under a board.
Oh
You can
yeah, I
balance
know what
on
you're talking
it.
about. Yep.
Yeah, I have one of those in my home office. Currently on a self ban. I was on it the other day and I went a little too far and I broke the vent cover for the AC vent. You know those little plastic covers
the
that divert
deflector?
the diverter. Yeah,
Yeah.
the deflector. I landed on it and broke it.
Mm.
So
Well, I will say, I have crashed on my one wheel a couple of times,
Mhm.
maybe 3, and the result is very similar to the skateboard crash.
okay,
So I've
makes
ruined a
sense.
shirt and a pair of jeans, and had to go to the clinic
Man,
because it was closer than the ER.
look at that. Life's still giving us lessons, man.
Life's still giving us, but you know what I have now? Safety gear. I have wrist guards, elbow pads, knee pads, and a helmet. And most of the time, I will wear both wrist guards, left elbow pad, and left knee pad because I'm facing that way.
Yeah.
And the 2 times that I've crashed, this elbow never gets hurt. This knee really never scrapes.
Okay,
It's just been my left side and both hands.
smart, man.
So
That's that Gen X ingenuity right there, man. We'll wear a little, but we don't need to wear it all.
we're not going overboard.
That's
I don't want somebody going, look at that guy. He's all geared up like he's somebody.
awesome.
Nope, just getting old. So
Just getting old.
anyway,
All right, good episode.
yeah, good episode.
Glad to be back.
Yes. So
Glad to see you guys back again.
yes, I know that all 39 of you have been really
Patiently waiting.
patiently waiting
Thank
for
you.
more content. And the last one we did was about 4 minutes, and it was just me. Although I stuck Chris over there. Did you watch that one?
I did. I looked great.
I thought you did. I
A
tried
little
to find,
quiet that day, but
Yeah.
I looked great.
I thought about trying to find some audio clips of you and just add it, a that's true, and just dropping it in there.
I was gonna say, I can give you some of those.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Thanks for coming. Hit the outro.